All right, we are live. Welcome back to Original Living in Asheville channel. It is Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I know I typically go on Wednesdays, but I have a guest today, and both of us could make it only on Tuesday. So here we go. I know I missed a few weeks, but we've been a little bit preoccupied with all things happening here in the Asheville area, not just Asheville, but Western North Carolina. Everyone heard, everyone knows, which is why today I'm bringing Sabrina West, who is our local mortgage lender here in the area, who we work with closely. And she's been on this show before with me. I want to say it was probably like 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
And things have changed since then. I know a lot of people were waiting and anticipating for mortgage rate cuts, and which they did happen. And we were gonna go live we were gonna go live that Wednesday, right? The Wednesday before the Friday, and we were having just bad weather, and we were like, let's just see how the weather's gonna be, because I was afraid that I was gonna lose internet.
Yeah.
Little did we know, anyways, the rest is history.
Yes.
So now, not only we want to do an update about mortgage rates, but also things that a lot of people struggling with right now, who have mortgages already, who have existing homes, and the struggle bus is real. While we are talking and discussing things, if you have any questions, me or Sabrina, put them in the comments. If you are joining us, put in the comments where you're joining from, different state, different town, maybe part of town. Tell us how you're doing. Sabrina, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I think I'm kind of, unfortunately I had to leave town because I had my mother living with me who's 80 and my son. So I, left for a few weeks in order, because of no power, no water. It was just harder with having my elderly mother. So I'm kind of like in re-entry mode right now, because I just got back on Sunday, and it's
a shock to the system.
It is a little shock to the system, but in only certain spots, right? So it feels kind of like business as usual, but then there's other things like
which is why it's shocking. Like you kind of forget about it for a second, because I look out of my window and it doesn't look like anything happened, especially now that we have everything running, including brown water. but then I drove through Biltmore Village today, and it was like, oh my God, it's rough.
You look over those certain areas. I mean, I learned really the hard way. Didn't think about it yesterday, and I was like, went to brush my teeth and I was like, just those little things, but
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you're safe and your family is, physically okay. We all, me, you, a lot of people I know are physically okay, but mentally it's, nobody's okay. Nobody's okay. No. But I'm trying to just do one day at a time. Anyways.
Yes.
So update us on what's going on with mortgage rates. Because, and the reason I want to start with mortgage rates specifically is because, believe it or not, there are people who are still buying and selling.
There is.
Not just outside of North Carolina, but in the area.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it was kind of shocking to me. Not shocking, but it was just kind of like snap back to, okay, who am I? Like, what do I do for work? Oh, I'm a realtor. That's why people keep, wanting to buy and sell. And, I got to fulfill my duty to them and all that stuff.
I think there's 75% of the town is okay. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Asheville in general, right? It's a whole 30% feels something
Yeah.
very different, you know?
I somebody sent a letter, email, a real estate firm. I can't remember who, and I don't know where they got this stat, but they said that 95% of houses were not damaged.
Mm.
Which, if you put it in numbers, 5% is still a pretty big number.
Oh yeah,
It's
it
like,
is.
anyways. So with that, let's start with mortgage rates.
Okay.
Where
So
we
mortgage
were,
rates,
where we are in right now.
where are we at? Okay. So I think what the big shocker for everybody was is they're like, we're having a rate cut coming, right? So 50 basis points rate cut from the Fed. What people didn't realize, and I really try to explain to all of my clients who were already under contract, they were like, no, we're going to wait for the Fed cut. We're going to wait for the Fed cut. And I'm like, they're not. Lenders already baked those cuts in. We already anticipated, right, that these cuts were going to be happening by the end of the year. And so you started seeing mortgage rates drop probably a month before then, right? They started going into those low sixes. So they were already baked in, right? And I think that's what I have a lot of people who wanted to play that. They didn't want to. They're listening to what you kind of Google and didn't talk to, their professional and whatnot. And then people will call me like, what are your rates? What are your rates? And I'm like, these were already baked in. So obviously, right, the rate cut happened. And then everybody's like, well, what's going on with the rates? And I'm like, well, it's already there. So a couple weeks later, rates started to trickle back up, right? And then they trickle back down, they trickle back up. And I think what we see is when you have natural disasters, when you have, war or things of that sort that are driven, right? And these numbers that create inflation, what happens is the market's going to react. And that's what rates just tick back up to where they were. So, I'm seeing still a wide range of rates depending on what product you're in. But they're sitting between 6.5 to all the way up to 7.125 right now.
And
Just
you have to qualify for that. You still have to qualify for that.
Yes. So I mean, and here's the thing. I think sometimes people get caught up in that, what rates are. But when you start looking at it, sometimes not that those payments make a doesn't matter. But sometimes it's $80 when your rate's changing by 0.25%. Depends on your loan amount. Depends on several different factors. So I think, if you're ready to buy, you either are renting and paying somebody else rent, their mortgage, or you're paying it to yourself. So I think it's a very individual process, and you just have to, talk to your professional and really go through those individual choices.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me really sad when you mentioned, you either pay your mortgage or somebody else's mortgage. Like how many, and I know a lot of people are not in the situation to buy a house, even, first time home buyers, especially Asheville being, having such high cost of living, meaning
right.
Everything costs a lot, and the wages of just like regular people who are in the like tourism industry, service industry are not that high. But anyways, like I see so many comments and posts on Facebook and all these groups, how people are saying they cannot afford to pay rent right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not only were they contributing to the landlord's, bank account, basically, now that all this happened, a lot of people are without jobs. A lot of people don't have income, and they cannot afford rent, but the rent is still due. And
Right.
I'm sure there are different kind of landlords who maybe do kind of, give them
Like a
a break,
discount.
but I'm sure there's a lot of, who don't. And it's just, but as a homeowner, for example, us, we took advantage of the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is loan forbearance.
Yeah. So forbearance, I don't know if people, during COVID, forbearance came out, right? So the government said, we're in a basically high stress situation. So lenders really were encouraged to give what we call forbearance. I think you have to decide what's good for you, right? So forbearance just means that a lot of times people think they're getting free payments, and that's not the case most of the time. The money is still due. It's either being tacked on to the end of the, end of the loan, at the whenever you finish your 30 years or your 20-year note,
Right.
and or whenever that 3 months is up, 6 months up, all of a sudden you have a lump sum payment of all those payments. So forbearance looks attractive, but my advice to people is, if your job's okay, your home is okay, and you're doing okay, don't take forbearance just because, right? And the reason that I give that advice is because it will come due. And I get people call me going, oh, I did this. And a lot of times those people are in higher, it depends on when they bought. If they're in higher interest rates, what will happen is now if rates start to come down and we go to sit there and refinance you, what happens is it doesn't mean your lender will refinance you, because what you did is you told your lender that you were in hardship. So think about it, right? And I think that's what's confusing, is people think, well, I took it because it was offered to me. Well, lenders are incentivized and ethically responsible to try with people in disaster areas. We need to provide you with delayed payments. Doesn't mean they're being forgiven. And it doesn't mean you're going to be able to turn around and get a loan right after, because just like anything, you just said, hey, I'm in hardship. So lenders want to see that you have reestablished stability with your income before a lot of times they'll go to let you refinance.
And that's across the board with all lenders, like it's a Franny's thing, or
yeah.
Okay. So
it can be, it's one of those things, but here's a little silver lining, right?
Please.
Like in COVID, right? In COVID, what happened is everybody took these forbearances and then they went to go refinance or purchase, and then they were told no, right? So what Fannie and Freddie did is they said, okay, once they have caught up all of their payments and or they're out of the forbearance 100%, they will sometimes give you a waiting period, a 3-month waiting period, a 6-month waiting period before you can go purchase and buy. The reason that I say to people right now is because that was a different time. We had low interest rates. Now you've had people purchase with higher interest rates who are set up going, hey, I want to refinance in 6 months. I want to refinance in a year. And if now you have that waiting period, now you don't have as many options, right? So my advice is, take it if you have to, or if you foreshadow that, hey, look, I just don't know what to expect, so I'm going to take this right now. But talk to a professional first and look at your individual situation, right? It's not free money.
So it's not the end of October yet. So those who didn't make a payment and took advantage of forbearance still have time. I mean, there will be penalty, because it becomes late on the 15th or 16th.
Yeah, so most mortgages are due on the 1st or 15th, depends on whoever your servicer is. But you have usually a 15-day waiting period where you can, before you get a late fee, but you're not technically late on anything until it's lapsed 30 days. And remember, it's reported on your credit report that you are in forbearance.
Even if you keep making payments, if you decide
to pull yourself out of forbearance and make your payments on time, you want to make sure that they unflag your loan as such, and it doesn't get reported as such if you've already started the process. And I'm not saying it's a bad, process. The thing is there are people who need it. There are people who need it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think sometimes though it can get confusing because you automatically get a letter when you're in the disaster area that says here we need to provide you ethically with. We don't know. They're not going to call everybody and be like, "Were you really affected? Do you have a job?" You know what I mean?
Right.
But they are just going through their protocol with sending the letters. People do it, right? And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it does have its repercussions for it. So you just got to decide if it's right for you.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, personally, like we took advantage of it because we had 3 closings that were not happen. I mean, they were going to happen, but everything was delayed. First, the attorney's office was closed for a week. Then there was no power, no water at some of the units. And then on the lender, on the finance deal, now lenders require, well, I guess not lenders, it's Franny requires final FEMA inspection on all these properties to make sure that they are standing and they were not damaged. So
it's not a dare, so you don't technically. It depends on when your appraisal was done, right? So a lot of my deals had appraisals done, like I delayed them till after the storm. So then they were inspected upon, after the storm to see if they were there. It is not a Fannie requirement, right? Or a Freddie requirement. We do have to verify that the property had no damage, right? But usually it's a drive-by or an appraisal goes out, or technically I can go out and look for anybody on my team. I can't do it on my own personal deals to make sure that the property is still standing, right? And then we have you sign an affidavit, both buyer and seller, to verify that you both have looked at the property and it's in good standing.
Did you have any deals fall through because properties got damaged or destroyed completely?
I was very lucky. There was one, the people who pulled out, I think just got cold feet. You know what I mean? I only had a few, and it was not due to damage more than just they were already nervous to begin with. So I was very lucky. I didn't have anybody that there, and some of the stuff that was very minor damage, like gutters and things of that sort, the agents really worked it out and looked at trying to get those things repaired and things of that sort. So I've been very lucky on what we've had, and we were even able to close without water, so I don't know that all lenders can do that. But at a time of inspection, I think there's a lot of confusion where people say, well, if you have new construction, you have to have water. We have to have access to water, right? So on new construction, you don't know if it's ever been hooked up, right? In this case, most of the time people have had access and the utilities have been checked upon inspection, right? So they do have it. So it is very, but those are things that are very, I think those are preferences that real estate agents really have to kind of discuss, because most of the time those people don't have water where they were at to begin with. So close it on their home,
Right. Okay. Do we know what happens to mortgages? It maybe out of your scope of practice, probably is. What happens to mortgages when the house got completely destroyed?
I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of going through that process. We are a very large lender, so I've been lending in other states that have disasters in the past. There's obviously a forbearance that most people who've had their house destroyed, they automatically move into forbearance. Typically what happens is they have to follow a protocol. They're applying for insurance. Insurance either takes it, denies it, rebuilds the house, or doesn't, right? But you have that forbearance until then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is part of the reason that lenders require you to have homeowners insurance is for this very reason, right? In this case, a lot of times those things aren't covered. So you don't know what FEMA is going to do. I think I had somebody ask, was it you? Somebody asked about what happens if the house is gone. Do lenders just, waive the mortgage, forgive the mortgage?
Yeah. Right.
And it is very unfortunate, but there's no fund, right? So most lenders are not in just one area. They're all over the country, right? They're lending in multiple states. Most lenders are, right? So there's not this slush fund that basically says, hey, we can just forgive it, right?
Right.
What you will find, though, is a lot of times the government will step in and give tax incentives for forgiveness and things of that sort in disaster areas. It's happened in the past. But a lot of times, like I said, this is a little bit out of my scope, right? Because I've seen a few forgiven, right? But it really depends on the lender. It depends on the situation. It depends on how much the note was. It depends if the insurance is going to pay to rebuild the house. There's a lot of factors that go into. And I'm actually dealing with this personally. My childhood home that I grew up in was 5 feet underwater. And so my mother's home, right? And I'm having to go through a process to where insurance came. There's not flood insurance because it wasn't in a flood zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wait on that denial, see if they'll cover anything for trees, right? So wind and hail covers different things, right? If you don't have flood, but you still have wind and hail. And then FEMA's right behind that. But, I will let you know on another live what happens, because there is a mortgage on it and what that looks like. And we are talking to, the servicers on those things to kind of see it. And they're like, you need to follow the protocol is what I'm being told.
Yeah. Okay. Let us know if somebody has any questions or comments about that. Somebody try to make a comment or question, but it looks like got cut off. Anyways, you can retype your question, Rick Thailand. I also wanted to ask if you have a crystal ball. Like people ask me, so how do you think real estate will do now with all this that happened? How do you think the market will do?
I mean,
what's going to happen? So my question to you is not about real estate, but rates. Do we have any kind of indication where rates will go, especially not just in our area, because of our area, because what happened, but big elephant in the room, November 5th.
Yep. I don't have a crystal ball. And you have one side that says if one particular person gets in office, that rates will start to come down. You have the other side that says the same thing. The thing is I think they have baked in about 150 basis points in order to do. Sorry, the question popped up and I got distracted. I think that they've baked in 150 basis points basically to try in 2025. I do think rates will come back down, but it's going to be based upon inflation. It's really tied to employment rate and what, consumer spending is, right?
Yeah.
So inflation started to come down and now we're in a place of where it's going back up a little bit. So I do think that rates will trickle down, but I think it's going to be slow, a lot slower than expected. But I do think that rates will come down.
Yeah.
My crystal ball.
This year or next year?
I think we might get another 25 basis points by the end of the year. I do not quote me on it. I think hopefully we will get into the high fives, maybe low sixes by the end of the year, but we only have 2 months. So I think we'll have a little pocket, right?
If you get lucky and can jump on
You
it, right?
do.
Just
I mean,
be at the right place at the right time. That's all.
I think people don't realize that when rates turned 2.5 weeks ago, right around that disaster 3 weeks ago, literally it went 50 basis points in 2 days. So
Yeah. But unfortunately for most people here in this area, everything was just a blur. The whole October was a blur, like I remember September, and now like we end in October, and I'm like, wow.
right.
Well, Rick Thailand said Buncombe County manager must advise all departments to reduce their budgets in each department by 2% and stop any further spending unless critical. And then he added, shortage of low-cost housing rentals will most likely increase to demand. Plus, homeowners insurance most likely increase. Your thoughts? So, Rick, do you mean the county spending should be decreased so that they can allocate the money to those who are in need and like put the money to good use? I mean, I think we can all agree that all government spending should be decreased, not just
Mm-hmm.
local. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I feel like there are resources, there are
Mm-hmm.
definitely money there. It's just who decides where they're gonna where the money.
Statistically, you're going to see homeowners insurance. So what I mean, I think sometimes people forget that homeowners insurance and lenders. Um, so, for example, like, and I hate to quote a particular insurance company, but a particular insurance company did a lot of insurance, and they really bought the market in North Carolina years ago. And then a massive hurricane hit around Wilmington area, and then all of a sudden, within 2 years, they pulled out, right? But then one insurance company pulls out, and then others come in and they kind of buy the market a little bit. So I do think that you're always going to always see an increase. I think, in my experience on homeowners insurance, we had already been hit with it though this year. Such an increase on homeowners insurance to begin with. So I'll be curious to see what it really does go to,
Yeah.
and how much FEMA steps in, how much the government steps in,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of these things weren't covered. I mean, Western North Carolina wasn't like a huge flood area.
Right.
When you get into Florida and you get into the coast, those people typically have those high dollar policies that kind of offset some of that. And I think that's what's going to be interesting. But I'm going to ask the parties.
Yeah. As far as rent, so what, like a year ago, it was all over newspapers and all over social media that rent in Buncombe County, or in Asheville, I guess in particular, was like the highest in the whole state. It was just, but then a few months ago, it said that it actually went down. And I did hear from my property manager friends and colleagues who are, also realtors, say that they've been struggling to rent out their clients' properties because it was just, they had to basically reduce the price a lot of times. But now I see a lot of people making comments and making posts how they have to move away from Asheville because they some people, they don't really have too many ties. They work remotely anyways, or they work somewhere that place no longer exists or is not going to be open anytime soon. So they might as well just move away and find similar job somewhere where they can work. A lot of people don't have work, can't pay the rent. They're checking out.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
I mean, I think it's typical. I mean, think about it. All of a sudden, people go. I mean, even me, for instance, I was gone I was back here a couple of times, but I was living in another city, and then you just get used to it, right? And I think, but if you look at any disaster area, people leave, and then you do have an influx of people who come in and buy the real estate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm having people still reach out to me, even they
Mhm.
fully understand and fully know what's going on and what happened, and they still want to move. So there will be, yeah, I guess there will be always people who leave, and then the problem is that for our particular area is that people who leave, you know, blue collar workers. It's not somebody, um, and all this, our economy relies on these people,
Mhm.
because who's gonna work in all these hotels and restaurants, and you know, it's kind of, there's got to be a balance. So yeah, I don't know, rent. It's supply and demand, but then
Yes.
uh, a lack of affordable housing, which that is completely like, we can talk for
We
hours, right? Can have a
need another
panel.
hour for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, if anybody's ever around Asheville, ABL meetup is a monthly, which of course it didn't happen this past time, but a monthly event where they have typically panelists talk on different topics, including affordable housing and just all kinds of stuff like that. That's related to community, real estate, living in Asheville, living in the area. If you ever want to stop by, um, reach out to me. I'll send you a link how to find them. But yeah, it's been an issue in our area for years. All right. Well, Sabrina, thank you so much.
You're
Um,
very
who has any questions? Put them in the comments right now. If you are watching a replay, put your questions in the comment section as well, and I'll be sure to forward them to Sabrina or answer them as much as I can. It's very unusual time and hard time for everyone. Hi, Eli. Thank you for your comment. If I renovate a walkout basement and put in a bedroom with a closet and a window, would that be counted as a bedroom for refi appraisal? Sabrina,
yeah.
that would be.
Put in a bedroom with a closet and window. That would be counted as a bedroom for a refi. If it's below grade, you're still yeah. If it's considered a daylight basement, you still it can be considered a bedroom but it's typically half value of what you get on your main square footage for the main living area. But I think when an appraiser looks at it, they do look at it like a bedroom. So sometimes some appraisers are going to count it as a bonus room, and then
Also,
others bedroom. Go ahead.
do lenders look if this the septic, how big the septic is in this particular case, for
We are
example?
very dependent on an appraiser telling us what it will and will not do, right? So it depends. Honestly, we're going to go off what the appraiser that we hire. So if they tell us, right, hey, look, this is only for a 2 bedroom septic, not a 3 bedroom, then if it throws a red flag and the appraiser saying it's a red flag, then we're going to ask the question. We're very
And most
dependent
likely,
on it.
yeah, and it most likely will. So the thing is, if the house is on the septic and the septic is only, for example, it's a 3 bedroom septic and you add another bedroom, you cannot legally advertise it as a 4 bedroom house. It's only a 3 bedroom. The house might have 5 bedrooms, so 10 bedrooms,
Mhm.
but you cannot advertise it as so. You can only advertise it as how many bedrooms on the septic permit. Hope that helps. Um, thank you, Sabrina. Another question: when should I consider selling a house in Swananoa? 2-3 years from now? Well, I would say, Vincent, it depends on where in Swananoa too. I know the main strip looks just absolutely horrific right now, but it's not, the whole Swananoa is not gone still, right? It looks like it when you drive through that and Beacon Village, and it's awful, right? And parts of what's that neighborhood across the street? I forgot. I would say it depends, and I don't think it's going to take 2-3 years for them to kind of clean it up and make it look like it's in ruins, like what it looks like right now, and that's basically gonna be, maybe not top shelf product or area, but it will be. And honestly, Swanano has never been that, bougie part of town. As you drive through that strip, like if you don't
It
turn
was
left,
just now starting to come out.
right? So it was kind of like up and coming area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on where it's at in Swananoa. It depends on if you had damage or not to the property. So I mean, it's all individually approached, just like real estate is hyper local. We approach every case by case. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want me to take a look, I'll be happy to, but I don't think it's going to take 2-3 years, honestly. And from talking to our colleagues in Florida who did go through all these hurricanes and stuff like that, what they're telling us is that property values of the houses that were not affected, that never gotten flooded, didn't have any damage, would not be affected. So property values will be kind of following the general trend in the area. If the whole area kind of steadily going up like it is in Asheville,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to happen. But of course, properties that were flooded, that did get damaged, will be affected, because a lot of people, I would be advising my buyers to make sure to look into whether or not it had water damage. If it did, have some kind of a certificate from restoration company or mold remediation company to make sure it was all taken care of, as well as consult with your homeowner's insurance agent and see how much, what's it going to look like, if there's going to be a change. So things like that. Hope that helps. All right. Thank you. Destined for greatness. Thank you. Eli, you're welcome. Up a hill in a subdivision, you have to drive through destruction to get there. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think it's going to take 2-3 years for them to kind of clean up and make it look more or less livable. I don't think it's going to take that long. And when people ask me, when should I buy? When should I sell? What do we tell them, Sabrina? It's not about rates, or it's not about trying to chase the market. It's so hard to to catch the market and chase the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's about your particular
Situation.
your family, your financial situation, your needs. So that's when you need to make a move. People are making moves right now.
They are. I mean, I got several contracts last week, people are still getting pre-approved. People are still coming to this area, I'll be interested. I've got a question I want you to look into, Elena. I'd love to know how builders are going to kind of change any protocols or things of that sort, because this was really a rare event. I'm born and raised from here.
Yep.
It was very typical for storms to hit the mountains. It slows down. So this was a very, very rare event,
Yes. Well,
so
I'm
for
actually
me, interested to see what builders start to do.
Yes. I am meeting with Brendan Bryant this week.
Okay.
Red Tree Builders. We're gonna make a video about it, because I had a ton of questions. We had a video from a couple years ago with him about building in the mountains, and I was surprised. A lot of snarky comments on that video now during this, hurricane thing.
Right.
People were saying, well, that did not work out that well, or not building in the mountains anymore, which, I don't know. I'm not a builder, but as far as I know, every house that Brendan built, they're still standing. And people just think that the whole Asheville is gone.
No. I mean, but look how many people still go to they still build on the coast. They still are on the coast, and hurricanes hit all the time, and they just pay astronomical, I mean, if you want to be in the mountains, you'll be in the mountains.
Yeah. So to answer your questions, I will get the answer that video will come out in the next probably 2-3 weeks. I'm like just trying to keep up with all the making videos and answering questions people have. If nobody has any more questions right now, I think we're gonna wrap it up. It's time to have my dinner
Same.
and go to bed because I gotta wake up at 5 a.m. Vincent has one more comment. I'm concerned that the commercial district in Swananoa doesn't come back, affecting the desirability of the area. Well, what do you mean commercial district? It's not like, to me, Swananoa and that even Main Strip kind of look like not even commercial, but more like industrial, where it used to be an outskirt of Asheville, and where just naturally all the like warehouses and just kind of like I don't even know where I'm driving through kind of stuff, going on. It wasn't like River Art District or Biltmore Village, where there was just like retail and commercial, where it was attractive to tourists and visitors and locals. I mean, we would go there all the time. It's one of those, it's more like a lot of commercial land, a lot of commercial stuff going on, not necessarily or industrial. So, and that's it's a flatter land there than some parts of Asheville. So I think it's gonna. I mean,
people still want to come here. I think it still will. I mean, Biltmore Village is flooded multiple times.
Right. And to kind of not answer your question, but we just had somebody today. Alexi was meeting my husband, who's also in real estate, was meeting somebody today, a potential client who wants to buy a bunch of land. I'm not gonna say where, but it was all flooded. Everything was flooded over there. And he wants to buy all that land and put it to use. So people are not discouraged. Which kind of, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm like, would I want to rebuild? But good example, Biltmore Village.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the first one. This is the worst time. This is the worst.
It's the worst one.
Happened, but Biltmore Village is the first one to go when we have just like a minor tropical storm.
The Swananoa River wants to go a different way. I know that. I mean, it's happened several times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think, if they still have those plans to revive the Beacon Village area, not the neighborhood, but they will plan to put that big park up there. I don't know if the funding is still there to do that, and it's probably going to be delayed now with all things happening, but it's going to come back. I mean, yeah.
As long as people still keep coming here, which I think they do, I don't see why it wouldn't. It'd be interesting to hear like a commercial view of, because Swananoa was starting to get more, corporate restaurants, things of that sort. It had really started to finally kind of fill in that space between Asheville, Otine, and Black Mountain, because people keep coming here and housing is needed,
Oh yeah. And I mean, it's for somebody who used to live in a big city, that distance is nothing to Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, no other questions or comments? Then now we're gonna wrap it up. You can always reach out to me. I have my contact information down in the description of every video. Reach out to me and my team if you have any questions about anything, related to the area, relocation. Sabrina, I think I put her contact information in the description as well. But you can Sabrina West, you can just Google her. She's known in the area. Sabrina, thank you so much for your time. And in there, these days we see somebody we know or we barely know, we hug them and just kind of get emotional that everyone, that person that you hug is fine, like alive. It's hard to put in words sometimes. But thank you all for coming.
Thank
Have a
you.
good Tuesday evening.